So this is the first day of my practice, the first day of the art journey. So I've been trying to think what's the best way to kind of tackle this situation. I've got a lot to learn. I know that. I'm trying to develop my illustration skills while simultaneously developing my storytelling skills, and the stories uh, have to go with the imagery. So the thought crossed my mind is like, well, maybe the best way is to kind of create them, maybe not simultaneously, but at the same time. So trying to wrap my brain around that particular scenario, I came across Inktober, which, it's the 27th of September today, and Inktober is fast approaching. And if you don't know what Inktober is, it's a internet trend where a bunch of illustrators draw an image a day using these Inktober prompts, and they're simple one-word prompts. And the goal is to just sort of create more art and to get used to creating consistently. And I think that's in line with what I'm trying to do. So the idea was follow the Inktober prompts while also writing a story to go with each prompt. Use the prompt as a touch point for a short story to go with it. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. I'm not following the Inktober rules strictly. I'm definitely kind of modifying them and tailoring them to my own needs, which is why it's not October, but I'm starting. So yeah, what I think I'm going to do is, since I know my skills with both of them are lacking, I'm going to focus more on just getting something out. I think that's a good place to start. I'm a little nervous because I know that since this is the start, this is going to not be great. This is the worst I'm ever going to be, which is a little embarrassing, but it's important. So we're gonna go on with it. And I know me personally, I can get lost in details and trying to learn while I go, and that's something I'm going to try and avoid with this practice. So I'm going to limit my drawing time to 2 hours. I'm going to limit my story writing time to 2 hours. And the hope there is that I just focus on getting it out. And 2 hours is enough time to for the drawing to do thumbnails, to do a sketch, and to ink, for sure. But it's not enough time to stress over the form, to stress over the composition. It's not enough time to get lost in my head about it. So that's hopefully what's going to happen. We'll see how it actually happens. And then same with the story. I know, so short stories, kind of the idea with the short stories is, stream of consciousness, just trying to, again, just get it out, get a draft out. Since it's limited to 2 hours, I think that'll be enough time to get a draft out and to probably even do one revision. So for short stories, the minimum is 1,000 words. So that's about a page. That's about one side of a page of computer paper. So, and then also, since it's a prompt, obviously the image has to do with the prompt, and then also the story. I just, because I like it, should include the prompt word somewhere in it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get started right now, and I'm going to set a timer, and I'll keep you updated. Okay, so the prompt I'm going to be working on is Mustache. So that's the first prompt for Inktober. And truth be told, I've had some time to think about this, so I kind of know what I'm going to do already. But I wanted to explain a little bit about how I came up with the idea. What I find interesting is that a lot of people think very similarly. There's parallel thinking. And with a prompt like Mustache, there's going to be similar ideas across multiple different people. And those are kind of the common ideas. And so like when I think of mustache, the first thing to come to mind is a mustache, and a particularly large mustache at that, maybe something prominent. And then, you could maybe take it further about like like a Yosemite Sam kind of style, like old timey frontier mustache. And, maybe you think a little bit beyond that and like, okay, we're trying to make an interesting image, maybe grow the mustache out, and now the mustache is legs for this character. Something like that, I would classify as a common idea. And it's not until you kind of sit with the concept or the prompt and you reiterate a few different times that you start to work your way into uncommon ideas. And I find for me, it's around like the fifth, sixth, seventh idea is when things start to get a little bit more rare, a little bit more uncommon with the ideas. Not to say that the ideas are bad, they're just common. They're ideas that other people are going to have also. So with this idea, I wanted to incorporate some sci-fi elements. So I was thinking, well, shove a robot in there somehow. So robot with a mustache. Well, why does a robot have a mustache? Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's for the story. The idea kind of popped into my head that maybe there's a futuristic society where robots wear mustaches as a status symbol. And I like that idea, so I figure stick with it. And then, well, robots can't grow mustaches, so maybe they harvest them from humans. And maybe in this futuristic society, humanity are now somewhat akin to livestock for the sole purpose of growing mustaches. And that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to thumbnail some images of a man in a cage growing a mustache and a robot owner, I guess, that harvests the mustache. And then, while I'm doing this, I'm going to be thinking about the story and kind of adding to that as well. So I'm going to get into some thumbnails. So I did some thumbnails, and I've already found one that I like. So this one right here, it's got a robot face with a mustache and a man in a cage behind the robot and some mustaches on the wall in like picture frames as like an adornment. And the robot's kind of walking away from the guy who's kind of leaning up against the wall, kind of sitting in the cage. And I think this is what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to move on to the larger drawing. And I'm just doing this on computer paper. All right, this is my rough version of it. I'm going to then take a photo of this and bring it into Procreate on my iPad, and I'm going to do the inking digitally because I need all the help that I can get. And Procreate will make it easier. But you can see kind of my shortcomings. My perspective is off a little bit. I can see that. I can't draw human figure that well. Kind of sloppy lines. Nothing's really straight. But it's kind of why I'm doing this, is I need a benchmark for what to improve on. So this is kind of helping me see my faults. So I'll bring it into Procreate next. All right, so this is as good as I'm able to get it right now. I still have a little bit more time on my 2 hours, but every time I touch it, I think I'm just making it worse. So I think I'm done here. So you can see I got a guy in a cage, and I got a robot wearing a mustache walking away, and on his wall, he's been collecting mustaches. So, I don't think it's terrible. I think I captured what I was trying to capture, but obviously the way I draw humans is kind of not great, a little disproportionate. I can see that my perspective on the robot body is a little weird, same with the human. I knew that this was going to highlight a lot of my shortcomings, and it has. So that was fun. I think the next step now is to start working on the story. So I'm going to hop over to my computer and I'm going to start typing up a short story. So again, it's going to be about a page long, minimum of 1,000 words, and I'll get started on that now. So I finished the story, and it was a little bit harder than I expected to keep under the 2-hour limit. I was definitely cranking it out as fast as I could, but the problem that I ran into was that I had to tailor the story to the image. Once I thought I knew what the story was going to be, but once I started writing it, it kind of took some twists and some turns. But because I had the image finished, it had to end up there somehow. And that, I think, was a hindrance. I don't think that the story, I don't think the story needed to, ended up, didn't need to, I don't think the story needed to be this scene, is I guess what I'm saying. So I think for the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the story first, and then I'm going to do the picture second. I'll have the idea of like what it is, the story, or like where it takes place, what the action is, what the character is. But I'm going to write the story first, and then from the story, I'll pick a moment in the story and I'll draw that. So I think that's going to be the better move for next time. So yeah, I think overall this was an interesting first whack at it. I'm excited for what the next one brings up. I am going to practice a couple things. One is a mannequin. So my sister saw the picture that I drew, and she gave me this book. It's about making mannequins to draw humans better. So I'm going to do a couple of the exercises in that book first before I attempt the next one. And I think that's going to help me with my proportioning and laying out the scene in general. So yeah, I think overall, solid first attempt. I'm going to show the finished story and the picture in the next video. I just, I didn't want to like pack too much into one little video. So the next video is going to be just the story with the image. So check it out.